Forum.
How are you? How you doing? Thanks.
Hey, how are you doing? We will begin with introductions. I am Dennis Heisey, El Paso County Commissioner. And since Mayor Mark Snyder is otherwise occupied, we'll go to my right this time.
Good morning, Norm Stain, Taylor County Commissioner, your secretary.
Wayne Williams, outgoing El Paso County Clerk and Recorder.
But you still are.
And I still am for another month. And we're still going to do some good things in this last month.
You're going to miss these days. See you.
I am.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, sure I am.
Besides, he has to drive a lot further.
You're gonna miss this.
You're going to miss these.
You're gonna miss this.
No, I can tell this is going to be a tough crowd today.
In the comedy corner.
Gabriel?
Gabriel Ortega, Mayor, City Fountain.
Sharon Thompson, Fountain City Council.
Stephen Slade, representing Shreveport Air Force Base.
Rod Chisholm, Deputy Garrison Commander, Fort Carson.
Brad McDonald, representing the Air Force Academy.
Jeff Bond, representing Peterson Air Force Base.
Karen Rowe, CDOT Region 2 Director.
Mark Welby, still representing Park County.
Daryl Glenn, El Paso County Commission.
Jill Gabler, Colorado Springs City Council.
Jim Nall, Public Transportation Representative.
Rob McDonald, PPACG, and for the board members, enjoy the bag of homemade cookies from the staff. As our additional thank you for all you did this last year, especially your budget over the last.
Did Rich help a lot?
Not on your agenda this
Wait a
one.
minute, didn't that have a salary increase for him in it, as I recall?
I love ginger snaps.
And for our military folks, this bag of cookies will meet any JAG officer's criteria, so take it and enjoy it. Yeah.
We were already asking that question. We didn't know what kind of cookies they were.
They are not infused cookies.
That was the second part of it we were concerned about.
Mark Snyder, Mayor, Manitou Springs, and first Vice Chair.
And only Mark's bag has the special cookies.
Nice. Yeah. Oh, great.
Over to the PPACG
Never
table.
ends.
Rachel Beck, Policy and Communication Manager.
Rich Muzzy, Environmental Program Manager.
Beverly Mansky, Finance Manager.
Craig Casper, Regional Transportation Director.
And moving to the audience.
Bill Gamble, Chair of the RAC.
Gail Nell for the applicant.
Bob Baker, Tech.
You guys are on your own. I'm not going to.
Larry Schaefer with PPAC and CTC. I'm an interested citizen.
Morning, Mark Gedreader, Teller County Commissioner.
Kathleen Krager, City Traffic Engineer.
Craig Lewis, City Colorado Springs, Mountain Metropolitan Transit. Brian Tooley, Mountain Metro Transit.
I'm hitting searches, not doing it. Wendy Pettis, CDOT Region 2.
Christopher Dan, State Health Department, Acquisition Division. Doug Everhart, Wilson and Company.
Thank you. Okay, agenda approval. Any changes to the agenda? Have a motion to approve? Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Without a dissenting vote.
Did you ask for any?
Nope.
Silence is consent.
Public comments. We have a resolution for the self-announced outgoing clerk and recorder. Do I have that resolution?
Should be there.
Okay.
Now it's in your red folder.
So, Mr. Williams, if you would like to come to the podium. Not that people don't know who you are, but
He's very shy.
resolution by the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Board of Directors acknowledging appreciation to El Paso County Clerk and Recorder Wayne Williams. And by the way, we did edit this to make it fit on one page. There was a lot that could have been said. Whereas El Paso County is a member government of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments, and El Paso County has representatives serving on the various committees of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. And whereas Wayne Williams, both as a commissioner and as clerk and recorder, has served and represented El Paso County with distinction on the board of directors of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments from January 2003 until December 2014. And as PPACG's representative on the statewide Transportation Advisory Committee for a period of 10 years. And whereas Wayne Williams was instrumental in serving on the statewide Transportation Advisory Committee, the Governor's Blue Ribbon Transportation Panel, CDOT's statewide transit project selection committees, and working with the Transportation Commission to fund strategic regional transportation projects such as the I-25 Cosmics Project, the I-25 Widening to Monument Project, the I-25 interchange projects at Cimarron, Fillmore, Baptist Road, Monument, and at Gate 20 of Fort Carson, as well as safety and interchange projects on the Powers Boulevard corridor. And whereas the December 10th, 2014 Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments Board of Directors meeting will be his final meeting as a member of the Board of Directors, now be it therefore resolved that the Board of Directors wishes to acknowledge its deepest gratitude to Clerk and Recorder Wayne Williams for his commitment to regional planning and collaboration, his wise counsel, and for his dedication to the advancement of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments and the citizens it represents. Resolved, approved, and adopted by the Board of Directors of the Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments this 10th day of December 2014 at Colorado Springs, Colorado. I so move.
Second.
Comments? Wayne, would you like to start, or would you? For rebuttal.
This is not a land use issue.
Well, when I became a commissioner, Wayne had preceded me in that by a couple of years, and I have to tell you, I thought coming out of a transportation background, I would be the roads guy. I'd be the transportation guy. And looking at people's resumes, I didn't see any reason why not. I mean, after all, I'm serving with an employment lawyer, and, well, I found out very quickly that role had already been filled. I don't know what it was about roads and transportation that made Wayne decide that was his thing in life as opposed to his training as an employment attorney. But, Wayne, you have filled that well, and I have found plenty to do otherwise. But you have done a great job, not just here, but also at the county when you were serving as commissioner on our transportation. So thank you. Who else would like to? Mark?
You've influenced me a lot, Wayne. And when I first came here 6 years ago, there was this El Paso County commissioner that was really into transportation. And I'd gotten a little interested in transportation in Alma when I was mayor, and the sidewalk project that really helped our town a lot, and this board had a lot to do with that, and we still appreciate it, and it still means a lot to the town. But as you get more and more farther, deeper into the transportation spiral, and you start realizing, how bad the situation is and how much it needs champions, because everybody wants to do something real cool, real fun. It's not fix the road. That's kind of boring. But it's really, really important, and we all realize, how important all the years you spent in this and how much you've meant to transportation in Colorado, not just to your area, but to the whole state and to the regional, because you encouraged me on a regional level to get involved, and I think you'll do great in the state, and I think you're going to miss us terribly.
To my right here, we'll start with Norm.
Wayne, it's been a real pleasure to be mentored by you on a couple different levels. When Teller County had issues with their own clerk and recorder, you personally stepped up. You committed resources to helping Teller County make it through a tough recall process. We never of course, made it that far because of your good advice and great help. And then at the stack level, I made it real clear when I took your seat, sort of last week or last month, rather, at stack, that I was not replacing you. That was absolutely impossible. But I was following you, and you've done so much to help not only the county but the region. Very, very grateful for all you've done.
Tyler?
Wayne, I greatly appreciate your involvement here at Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. You've been instrumental in many decision makings, and as the previous speakers have mentioned, your role in transportation has been tremendous. But beyond that, I think that your wise counsel and considered insight into many issues and thinking through issues and asking tough questions for this board to consider and really pushing our thought process further has really contributed tremendously to the region and to the ability for the regional governments to work together, and I greatly appreciate that, and I know that you'll carry that same mindset forward as you move on to state office, and I congratulate you and wish you best of luck with that.
Anyone else? Mark?
I was thinking just the other day, Wayne, about my first meeting here, sitting for Marcy Morrison, and we were debating the ozone testing, emissions testings for cars, and I was young and idealistic, not old and jaded like I am now. And I thought, boy, I'm going to get on this guy. He wants to destroy the environment. And it turns out your arguments were very good. It was all about the disproportionate effect on low-income people that kind of testing had. And I learned a lot from you that day and continued all throughout this process. So I want to wish you luck in your new endeavor, Mr. Secretary of State-elect. And I'm sure you'll bring the same compassion and integrity to that position that you've brought here. But just to be safe, we're going to be watching you like a hawk. So, so good luck. Thank you.
Let me go to Jim. Rob, we'll come back to you for kind of final here.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say something, because everybody expects me to say a lot. But I'm sure this guy might remember that more than once as I sat beside him or near him, if he would allow me, on these boards and commissions, he gave me the wise statement on occasion, if you just would stop talking now, I think you already got the votes. I give you that message as you go forward to remember it yourself. And you're one of the few lucky ones and dedicated ones to put your life into public service. And I thank you for that as a citizen, as your friend.
Daryl?
I had to pick on Wayne a little bit, but I mean, Wayne's one of the few attorneys that I actually like. So.
I suggest your wife is one of the others.
I said few. I'm not going to make this a funeral. We're still going to see him. You know, he has been a fantastic person to work with, whether it's privately within the party, community, working with him when I was on city council and he was on the county commissioner, working those issues. Wayne was always somebody you can pick up the phone and have a conversation with and try to work things together collaboratively. It's been great being a liaison to one of the co-liaisons to the clerk and recorder's office. And I think the citizens of the state recognize the importance that he placed on the integrity of the election process. That's why he's in the position that he's going. So you've represented the community really well, and I look forward to continue to working with you in the future.
Sally?
You knew I wouldn't not say anything. Well, this isn't a memorial service, as Daryl pointed out. And I know you're a man of few words, so I'll try and keep this quick. You know, I think, Wayne, you've taught us and certainly taught me the importance of involvement. And, you know, I think I said it at CCI, Colorado Counties, last week. Jack Hilbert was always fond of saying, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so in this case, it is really important, and I think you've taught us how important it is to be at the table. And I look at just a couple of the things that not only the PPRTA and the involvement of getting that moved forward during your tenure as a county commissioner, who I learned a lot about your obnoxious questions, as you were always happy to say. But I-25 widening, getting Cimarron and I-25 moved up on the list, and certainly Baptist Road improvements, many different things that we worked on, both at the county level and here at PPACG, your support of the military, who's at the table, and not to be forgotten, your compassion for human services, as well as the fact that along with that is the importance of the Area on Aging here at Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments. So I think you're going to obviously be a great success, but you've taught us a whole lot, and just because you were elected clerk and recorder, you continue to stay involved and didn't just say, well, that's not my job and I'm going to do something different. You still maintain your not only your commitment, but your compassion. So we are going to miss you on this board. Maybe the board meetings will get a little faster, but I don't know. I guess that's all contingent upon what your remarks are. But but thank you for your service. We are very excited to be working with you in a different capacity at the state level. So congratulations, and we will miss you. And I'm sure those folks on staff will definitely miss your obnoxious questions, as you like to put it. So congratulations.
Rob?
Sure. Wayne, thank you from the staff, the administration, for a lot of things. I think the biggest thing is, as the board knows, we endeavor to go fund the tip after you approve it, and Wayne is probably in the hundreds of millions of dollars of gets for those projects that may make your commute a little bit better as you go to Denver. You only have 1 or 2 traffic lights to go from where you're at. Head to Denver on a wider, more improved, well-paved roadway. And so I think over the years, it's been a decade since we first trekked up the stack together. And thank you for letting me out of stack. I don't have to go anymore. And it's, after 10 years, and Norm said it earlier, it's huge effort there that you endeavored as vice chair, and just all the comments you made for transit and roadways, and making us think a little bit of how we can say things more politically correct without standing on the table or chairs and yelling at stack or other folks. So we appreciate that. You really helped move the transportation ball down the road, as well as the other functions here. You've asked questions over the years. So thank you for all that you've done for us. And we know where you live, so we may still call you.
Anyone else before Wayne does what he's calling rebuttal? Mr. Williams, WWW.
Thank you very much for those wonderful comments. And I think I'll get a tape and we'll just play that at the funeral. So, but I hope that's a long ways away. In answer to Dennis's question, how did an employment lawyer wind up dealing with transportation issues? And that's when I knocked on doors, when I ran for the first time 13 years ago now. I guess it was 12. 12 and a half. We knocked on doors in every precinct that had anything less than a 5-acre lot. And the concern I heard from the people of this community dealt with what happened in their daily lives. And they couldn't get from work to the kids' soccer game. We had businesses that, instead of being able to service 6 customers during a day, could only serve 5 because they spent the other hour stuck at Woodman and I-25 or Austin Bluffs and Union or on I-25. And so it was impacting the economic vitality of the community. It was impacting people's lives, and they could not enjoy it. One of the lawyers I used to work with said he used to dread coming to work every day just because of the commute that would take place on I-25 when it was just a 2-lane road each way. And so it was actually listening to the constituents as I knocked on those doors that pushed me to go into transportation, because it is one of the areas in which we directly impact the lives, not just of some people, but of every person in this community. And whether even if you just sit at home, the goods that are transported to you, if you go nowhere and just buy stuff online and have it delivered to your house, someone's delivering it there. And that's part of that role, and part of why I got into it is because it has that direct impact on people's lives on a daily basis. There are challenges, and I thank you for the kind comments, and yes, we have done lots of great projects, but there's still a lot to do. And if you look at the studies in terms of what happens if we don't do anything, the average Coloradan is going to spend almost an hour more on the roads each day if we don't do things in this state to address that. So the mission is not finished. And that's real time. And you may think, well, that little extra minute may not make a little difference, but you add that up to a family as they try and get their kids from one activity to another. There's still a lot of work to do, and I'm just ecstatic that all of you are continuing that and will continue to fight for both the needs here in our community and the needs of the state, because we do have to work together. And I end by just saying this has been one of the greatest collaborative bodies that I've ever been associated with, if not the most collaborative body, because when you look at the way government is broken in so many places, the state, federal government, where instead of working to figure out a solution, people get in their own little camps and don't get things done. And this is a body that has gotten things done, and we have looked above local issues to say, how do we get things done for the whole community? We came together with respect to all of those projects that were identified and a host of others. And I look at Fort Carson. When I became a commissioner, 115 was generally a death trap as people drove on that side. There were bridge abutments on the north side of Fort Carson that were not connected because it was a two-lane road, one lane each way. The gate to the fountain area and Highway 16 had backups. And so this was a base, a fort that did not have the access that you need to make, that was representative of the fact that it is the state's #1 primary employer. And we came together to address those issues with different funding sources for all three sides of Fort Carson, but we got it done. And we did it by working together, and we can continue to do that. I am not disappearing from the world. And so you will still hear occasionally from me, and I am still responsive. My cell phone is not changing. It's on the county website right now. It's on the PPACG list. I will still respond to the folks of this community, and I'm still a part of this community, and I hope to be for a very long time to come. If you see a for sale sign at a house, do not get alarmed. That simply means we're moving to a single level living. We no longer have 4 kids at the house. We don't need quite the same. It doesn't mean I am abandoning my home, and this has been my home for longer than any place I've ever lived. So thank you very much, and thank you for all of your service, because all of that has made what I do possible. So thank you.
Thank you. Let's vote on that motion that's on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And just because Wayne chided me for not calling for a negative vote, and so there's no doubt in his mind, any no votes, it's unanimous, Wayne. Wayne, if you could join us for a presentation. You know, this looked like a big room.
Maybe with the whole executive.
I'm this way.
There you go.
Go ahead.
And everybody?
Not that I'm
We'll
like a
flank you.
camera bug or anything.
Be on Facebook in 3 minutes.
Well, I already tweeted it.
You're behind the times. Vince, you better get over there.
I'm working on it here, but
I know.
Mark,
You're in the
come on,
executive board.
get in there.
my coat off.
Because
The chair
you
will-
back with Pete, I would
I'll
not
follow Dennis's
associate
lead.
with anyone without a coat. Right?
We need to get a lady up.
It's those turtlenecks.
Yeah.
No, I don't even want to be up there. Yeah, lady up there. Sally, we need a lady.
Yeah.
How about that executive committee? We need a lady.
I'm a former.
Well, I know, but look at it now.
Remember that one?
Oh, yes. You just say, what is he, got a scrapbook at home? That was a funny one.
Okay, we are still on public comments. Anyone in the audience have an item they would like to bring before this board that is not on today's agenda? Seeing none. Our consent calendar. Anyone have an item there they would like to pull off? Seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
Move approval?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, our reports. Strategic Coalition for Federal Action Update. Do we have our impact folks here yet this morning? Okay, we will hold that one for the moment. Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things to announce from your packet. I continue to do some training with Rachel, who moved. She's no longer back here, but Rachel has been learning the ropes of the committees that she runs, the Community Advisory Committee in particular. Also diving into the transportation issues that she may or may not like, but she's certainly learning quite a bit. So we're making the round, and she's picking up a lot of information. So when we get to legislative items starting in January, you'll probably hear more from Rachel on a variety of topics. Also wanted to highlight, still in transportation, and kudos to CDOT. I think there's Karen. And the other CDOT folks. We continue to work with the Regional Priority Program funding source to try to knock out some of the projects. As you approve TIP amendments, you have TIP Amendment 24. As soon as we can verify the money from the state and the locals and the match and all the flavors, we bring you TIP amendments. But we continue to work on that long list of priorities. But as TIP amendments go, you're starting to run out of projects. I'm sure we'll add some pretty soon.
We'll come up with some more, Rob.
No doubt. Also, for the Area Agency on Aging, invite some of the board members, beyond reading the report in your packet, during the RAC meetings, they do presentations from the subcontractors, the people that provide services with the dollars you approve for the senior services. And quite enlightening of the depth of service that they provide with the Area Agency on Aging money. So I invite you maybe drop in or look online to read their minutes or some of their video of their meetings. Really a good group of folks getting services out. And finally, our insurance programs. As you walked in, you probably saw we have the wrap-up of the Medicare Part D, which we do every year. We help navigate through that system with our navigators. And we're almost done with the Connect for Health Colorado. Headlines aside, from Connect for Health, ours seem to be working well. They have not sent any auditors down for our role in that, but we think we've covered the bases in providing a great service for folks that come in. Once we finish that enrollment period, we'll report back to the board on the numbers, the hundreds, if not thousands, of folks that our navigators serve in that process. That's all I'll report on.
Thank you. Transportation Advisory Committee. Tim Roberts? Not Tim Roberts. I can tell that already. Thanks, Jennifer.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board. Tim Roberts was able to chair the meeting for me because I was in Denver on the 20th to attend the CDOT Transportation Summit. So, but I did go ahead and go back and listen to the TAC meeting. This month, we had a couple of items. Mr. Prather reviewed the Board of Directors report from last month, and then the TIP Amendment 24, which you have later in your agenda today. The committee unanimously recommended approval to your body. And then there was a discussion on the MPO boundary change, which was somewhat discussed last month here at the board as well. The county is proposing to include some additional area to that boundary change, and PPACG has requested some additional information, and so we expect that to come back to the committee this next month. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions for Ms. Irvine? Thank you.
Thank you.
Community Advisory Committee, Bob Baker.
Thank you. Good morning. We had Rob come and do the presentation on the award that PPACG received. And I think everybody was impressed with the accomplishments of that award, that brought that award to us for the 2035 update RTP. I'd just like to say it's not only congratulations to Rob, but to Craig and certainly the staff and this board. So feel good about sharing in that award that PPACG received. We received a budget presentation from Brian Vituli for Mountain Metro Transportation and from Brian and Angel Bond regarding the 2040 transit and specialized transportation plans. It was about as brief as it could be because they were on their way, I think, to a city council meeting and were pressed for time. But a lot of good things are happening. We received information about shortening times on routes, changing the system for as it relates to the size of buses and where they would be, interconnections. It was very good, and pressing it into a budget is also a good sign. We approved we recommend to the board approval of TIP Amendment number 24. There was some discussion surrounding the precedent setting in Manitou's request, but that quickly turned into praise for their austerity and financial stewardship.
Thank you.
2 items were tabled, the CDOT Regional Priority Program projects at the behest of the presenter, and the MPO planning boundary changes seeking more information. So that's all I have. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you, Bob.
Yeah, thanks.
Regional Advisory Council, Bill Gamble.
Good morning.
Morning.
The RAC met on November 20th, as you can see in the attachment. The couple of items that you'll be hearing more about, and I mentioned last month, and that is the Senior Reach program to address mental health needs of seniors. Based on a survey that was done, there was some 20%, it seems, that of seniors could benefit from some assistance with mental health. If we include this group, that percentage might go up. Anyway, we'll hear more about that. Several agencies in our region are trying to develop a model that will model what is being done in Jefferson County to help our seniors who need mental health support. You'll also hear more about carryover funding. I mentioned last month that the Technical Review Committee would be addressing that, which they did last week, and that will be presented to the RAC tomorrow, and you'll hear the results of that at the January meeting, the carryover funding that the RAC had to address. In keeping with what Rob said, we had some very good presentations at our meeting. Just to review which ones: the Fountain Valley Senior Citizens, the Pikes Peak United Way, Prospect Home Care and Hospice, the UCCS Aging Center, the YMCA, and those are all very good in-depth reports that told us what is being done with the funds that you support. So again, I'd like to support Rob's invitation to come to some of our meetings to see where the rubber hits the road and how your money is being spent. And that's it.
Thank you. Questions for Mr. Campbell? Appreciate it, Bill.
And I might say this is my last meeting, too. I've served my sentence. The bylaws say that I have to step down for at least a year, and so next month you'll have a new RAC chair. So it's been
Well,
good.
thank you.
The
We
last 6
appreciate
years
your
has been great.
service.
Thank you.
Thanks. AFCURE, Arkansas Fountain Coalition for Urban River Evaluation. Rich Muzzy.
Thank you. Some of the highlights from the meeting that we had last week are that AFCURE decided to go ahead and form a working group to go ahead and discuss the stream resegmentation issue. This group will go ahead and take a look at the current resegmentation that's used, which streams are located within which boundaries and what those standards are, and determine if there might be some changes that are necessary with regards to that resegmentation. This will be ongoing work, and we anticipate that we will need consultant help. So we'll be looking at developing a scope of work for that. We're continuing to look at the MPDS wastewater permits that are being issued and any common concerns and issues with regards to those. We talked a lot about sampling locations within the Fountain Creek watershed and the project study area, and to go ahead and determine how we can share some of those sampling locations, share some of the costs for those locations, not put the burden on any one entity, but go ahead and determine how those costs can be shared, and also to go ahead and streamline the effort more, do quarterly sampling in some cases instead of monthly sampling, determine which metals really need to be sampled, and other parameters to go ahead and try to reduce the cost of the sampling that's necessary. With that, are there any questions?
Questions? Commissioner Clark.
Rich, and are you with this group also monitoring the waters of the U.S. issue as it relates to federal restrictions with the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers on additional rules and regulations related to waterways?
Right. The public comment for that, as you know, has closed. So right now we're just looking at to see what changes are being proposed. So they have not issued a final ruling yet. So.
Well, and what I've heard is they'll come up with a new set of rules, and then ask for additional comments. So I guess we just need to be ready and prepared at that time to make additional comments once they come up with a little more specifics on what they consider a U.S. waterway and whether it's a curb and gutter or a actual navigable waterway.
And my understanding is that the EPA has heard similar comments and concerns from many organizations and entities. So as you know, it's just
I think I heard, and I don't know if this is correct, if I'm remembering this right, but I believe they've received over 500,000 comments. So
that could be true.
It will take them a while to go through them.
Yes.
And ours was one of them. So thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Sure. Thank you.
Gail Mills, I understand your group did not meet. Is that true? Okay, so no report there. Action items. Fiscal year 2013 to 18 Transportation Improvement Program Amendment Number 24. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Ken Prather, PPACG Transportation Planner. In 2005, the PPACG Board adopted a TIP policy to limit the use of congestion mitigation and air quality improvement funds called CMAQ funds to 2 years of operational support for a project. At the time, the federal regulations allowed 3 years, but the board wanted to spread the money around and make it available to more projects and entities. The city of Manitou Springs was awarded a 2-year project for its transit shuttle, a phenomenal success, and is finishing up the project right now this year, and has a few funds remaining that they wish to be able to use up rather than return to a pool for a competitive process. and they're asking for a waiver of the board's policy about the use of the funds. During the discussions with the TAC, there was no other entity that expressed any desire for the use of the funds. Last month, the City of Colorado Springs requested, on behalf of numerous agencies, the addition of projects that the board had approved for specialized transit program to be added to the TIP, but they overlooked their own project, and so this month they're adding that as part of this TIP amendment. CDOT has a bridge maintenance ramp project for 9 bridges in our region that is caught up in cost increases, like many of the construction projects we've already been talking about. They're requesting to add a little over $169,000 to this project, but they also must remove 3 projects from the list. One of the projects that's remaining is the Williams Canyon Bridge on Highway 24 in Manitou, and Craig, if you can pull that up, you can see the need for that project to remain.
Very cool. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So,
the Transportation Advisory Committee, the Community Advisory Committee, and the staff recommend approval of the projects. I do want to bring out one change. In the memo, the City of Manitou Springs reported there was $34,000 left over in the project. The most recent project reconciliation or closeout figures that I was just handed has raised that to $35,601.09. So if it's your desire to approve the TIP amendment, I would ask that you include that change in the financial amount as well.
Councilmember Pico?
If we delay further, does the number continue to go up?
We'll keep looking, but I think that's the final.
I was just wondering if we waited a little longer, if they'll up it again.
Yeah. Questions? Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Look forward to getting some of those CDOT bridges dealt with. I have citizens that talk to me about a couple of them, so. 6B, PPACG Foundation Proposal. Rob, do you want to take this one?
That's mine, yes. Last month you saw the exact information, new information. City of Colorado Springs Councilmember and I requested we do a little bit more research. The new information in the packet is the table on page 1 and page 2. The help of a couple staff folks. We researched other foundations, and Pikes Peak Community Foundation still seems to be the best bet for us to endeavor into this world, and they would take down a 5% of donations, so it wouldn't cost PPACG any dollars to be able to give tax receipts for those folks that would like to give us a donation, typically for our area agency on aging services. It also allows us to receive some grant money that are very particular in only giving to 501c3 type organizations. And so the proposal is the same, the other added information. We did talk to our independent auditor just to verify what we suspected, that using one of our partner agency foundations that this board funds through Area Agency on Aging is not a good business practice. Probably would be a recommendation in the audit to say you shouldn't give the impression of giving them money on one hand and requiring them to do a foundation service on the other. They, as we talked last month, they suggested we stay away from that. And through the Pikes Peak Community Foundation, we can keep the money clean. It would come into our budget process, and then this board would allocate it on top of the other federal, state, and local dollars for Area Agency on Aging Services. So our proposal is to submit, and with your approval, we'll do that.
Questions?
Move approval.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
One
We did have a question.
more comment. I think as time goes on, it'll be important for this board to consider. I clearly hear that it's intended to be a pass-through, but at some point it may become something that has some principle that is carried over and interest and things, so that investment policy and/or principle and restricted gift policy would probably be important for us to consider as well. And I'm sure the foundation can supply a draft for us to consider.
I think that would be easily done, and we hope we're at that point where we're talking about interest earnings on foundation grants.
Thank you. 7A, EPA proposal to revise ozone standards. So the revision has been resurrected. Is that where we are?
That is it. It seems like a timely presentation based upon the comments that Mark made. We can do a little bit of reminiscing here. Good morning, everybody again. My presentation this morning will go ahead and focus on the EPA proposal to revise ozone standards. This just came out on November 25th. This will be the beginning of a long process, and PPACG staff will be making many presentations to go ahead and update the board of directors as the proposal goes through its various stages. PPACG is the lead air quality planning agency for the Colorado Springs urbanized area. So we are responsible here for the development of plans and updates to make sure that our region complies with air quality standards. And as part of this, we'll be working with the state and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Air Pollution Control Division stakeholders to go ahead and find the best strategies to go ahead and address the potential for the Colorado Springs urbanized area going into non-attainment for ozone. The EPA was under a court order to go ahead and revise the existing ozone standard, which was established in 2008. They were ordered to go ahead and come up with a standard, a proposal by December 1st of this year, and to go ahead and take action by October 1st of 2015. The current standard, which is 0.075 parts per million. This can also be expressed in parts per billion, which would be 75 parts per billion, was established in 2008. And this proposal is proposing to set a concentration, a level at or within the range of 0.065 to 0.070 parts per million. And that would be the standard for the primary and the secondary standard. This is based upon a recommendation from the Clean Air Science Advisory Committee, and this is a group of scientists which advises the EPA administration on what the standards should be, and they review all the information and data with regards to health effects of ozone and the potential for what could happen to at-risk populations for those that have emphysema, bronchitis, asthma, people that are older or younger, what the effects of a lower standard could go ahead and have on them. This shows the approximate timeline. As I mentioned, they're looking to go ahead and finalize the standard by October 2015. The designations, areas will be designated as complying with the standard, which is referred to as attainment, or not complying with the standard, which is referred to as non-attainment. By December 2016, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Air Quality Control Commission will take their first stab at it and hope to have a a list of areas that comply or don't comply by December 2016, and then the EPA will go ahead and review that list and come out with the final designations. After that, areas will have an additional 3 years, looking at about 2020 to 2021, to develop a plan. And this plan will go ahead and address how an area will go ahead and comply with the ozone standards. So if areas are designated as non-attainment, this plan will go ahead and list all the regulations and voluntary actions and strategies that it will do to go ahead and bring that area back into the standard for ozone. A lot of the dates depend upon how severe an area is classified. There's different classification severities depending upon how much you exceed the standard. So for areas that go ahead and exceed the standard by a lot, such as Sacramento, LA, many areas in California, they'll go ahead and have until about probably 2035 to go ahead and bring their area back into compliance for that standard. So, as I mentioned, this is kind of a long process. Any regulations or strategies that we would have to go ahead and adopt as part of the implementation plan for this area probably would not be required for adoption until 2018 or so, I'm guessing. And again, this all depends on the modeling that's done to go ahead and determine how far out of attainment you are. Ozone is unlike many other pollutants. You need 3 years worth of data to go ahead and determine if your area is in attainment or non-attainment for the standard. And it's not the first 3 highest concentrations that are used, but the 4th highest concentration for each year is averaged out over that 3-year period and compared to the standard to determine if your area is in attainment or non-attainment. Ozone concentrations are usually highest in the summer months, June, July, and August, because during those months are when you traditionally get the hottest days, and you need sunlight to go ahead and cause the chemical reaction between nitrogen oxides and volatile organic compounds, which actually cause ozone to form. But the EPA is finding more and more that a lot of the high concentrations are occurring outside of these summer months. So as part of the EPA proposal, also they're requiring year-round monitoring. Now this will not affect Colorado because Colorado already does year-round monitoring, but this will affect some states that just monitor for ozone during the summer months. The current ozone airshed boundaries are the same as the MPO planning boundaries, and the ozone airshed for our neighbors to the north of us consists of, it's a 9-county Denver area, which includes Larimer and Will County, and they're currently not complying with the existing ozone standard of 0.075 parts per million. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. There's 2 ozone monitors located in our region, one at U.S. Air Force Academy and the other in Manitou Springs. Some of the health effects from ozone can be chest pain, coughing, throat irritation. It can be especially problematic for people that have emphysema, asthma, and bronchitis. One of the interesting things about ozone is that the background concentrations can range between 35 to 50%. That is, if we did nothing here, we would still have ozone that's measured at our monitoring stations. And source apportionment modeling that's been done, that's modeling that goes ahead and identifies the various sources, shows that ozone is such a regional pollutant of concern. You can have ozone concentrations coming into our area from as far away as Mexico and Canada.
35% of what?
35 to 50% of say the concentration at the Air Force Academy monitor. So if you had a concentration of 0.070 parts per million, up to 0.035 parts per million can be coming from outside of our area. So what this means is any local controls and regulations will just primarily address that increment of between 65 to 50% of the ozone sources just in our area. So it just goes to show kind of a lot of the strategies will be at a federal level because a lot of the ozone concentrations are influenced by what happens outside of our region. Ozone is not emitted directly as pollutants such as carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, particulate matter, and most air quality pollutants. So I mentioned it forms from a chemical reaction between VOCs and nitrogen oxide. Unlike the Denver area, which is trying to go ahead and address ozone primarily through oil and gas well regulations because that's their primary source along with the eastern part of Colorado. Our primary sources are motor vehicles followed by power plants. So again, we're kind of in a unique situation because in many parts of Colorado, they have different sources for ozone, and they're kind of the emissions from the oil and gas wells. Concentrations can be extremely variable for ozone, and a lot of it just depends upon the meteorology. Some of the federal air quality regulations that will reduce ozone concentrations in the future, and these regulations will be factored into the modeling that's done to go ahead and determine what's how much we need to go ahead and reduce ozone concentrations in our region to go ahead and maintain the standard. The proposed clean power plant rule, the deadline to submit comments, I think, ended December 1st, so they're looking at the potential revisions for the clean power plant rule, Tier 3 vehicle emissions and fuel standards. That gets at using low sulfur content gasoline, increasing the fuel economy of cars. A lot of the benefits from these federal air quality regulations we really won't be seeing until much later, like 2017. Interstate transport provisions, those don't affect us. That's primarily with regards to the East Coast area. But we could be seeing some of the benefits from those as far as reduced air quality concentrations in our region. Let me go through this slide real quick. That 0.075 parts per million, that solid brown line, that shows what the current standard is at. Each one of those points that you see on the blue or the pink line, those represent 3-year average concentrations for that monitoring station. So if you look at 2014, you see at the U.S. Air Force Academy, that's a 3-year average between 2012 to 2014 for the fourth max at the Air Force Academy. And so as you can see, we've had a lot of variation in ozone concentrations over the years. The solid red lines that you see between 0.065 and 0.070, those are the ranges of where the EPA is proposing to go ahead and adopt a new standard. And they're looking at, based upon what I read in the regulations, of using a 3-year average between 2014 to 2016. So right now, the most current data we're working with is 2012 to 2014. But as I'll show in the next graph, 2014 concentrations in our region were extremely, extremely low. So it is possible that if we see two years of really ozone concentrations and they set the standard at excuse me, 0.070 parts per million, that our region could actually comply with the ozone standard. If you notice those two data points, they both need to be below that 0.070 threshold. That is, even if you have one at and one below, you would still be classified as non-attainment. This table, the first part of the table shows what the 5 highest concentrations have been for the 3-year average that was just calculated for U.S. Air Force Academy in Manitou Springs. What I'd like to bring your attention to is how low the concentrations were for 2014. One reason why I think this occurred is because of the unusual summer we had. There's a lot of cloud cover, thunderstorms. We had unusually lower than average temperatures. If you look on the bottom table there, you'll see how during the summer months the average max temperature was actually between 1.4 to 2.9 degrees lower between 2013 to 2014. All this helped to kind of drive down those ozone concentrations because we also didn't have many days that were higher than 90 degrees. So that's, you can also see how the temperatures between 2012 to 2013 were a lot lower too. And at some of the monitoring stations, especially in Manitou Springs, you can just see that drop. Between 2012, the fourth max was 0.075, 2013, 0.072, and 2014, 0.061. So as the temperatures dropped, we also saw the ozone concentrations drop. So that's just kind of the wild card, I guess you could say, the effects that meteorology has on ozone. These are some strategies that are currently being implemented or being evaluated in the Denver ozone non-attainment area. The inspection and maintenance program, which actually now includes Larimer and Weld counties. Interestingly enough, in 2008, Larimer and Weld County also got rid of their emissions testing program, but they had to bring it back on board shortly thereafter because the Denver ozone airshed expanded and included Larimer and Weld counties. So their emissions maintenance, inspection maintenance program was revised to go ahead and address hydrocarbons and also nitrogen oxide. Traditionally, their program looked primarily at CO, carbon monoxide. Some other changes were making the cut points more stringent. What that means is when you do the tailpipe emissions, you go ahead and check for the concentrations of NOx, nitrogen oxide, and VOCs. And you can make those cut points more stringent based upon the model year of the vehicle to try to go ahead and reduce emissions. As cars become more and more fuel efficient, we start seeing some of the benefits from the federal regulations. We're seeing Denver has increased the model year exemptions in the area. The onboard diagnostic testing, I believe that's advisory. The OBD is pretty much those lights that a lot of people have in their cars that sometimes people tend to ignore. Lots of times they have to actually do with the emissions testing equipment. So when cars come in to get checked, it's advised that you go ahead and take a look at those lights to see, if there's a problem with emissions testing equipment. Other components of that program are gas cap checks and the remote sensing clean screen program, which identifies kind of which cars might need to be tested through remote sensing. The adoption of Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Air Quality Control Commission regulations, that was included in the ozone maintenance plan for the Denver area, and those primarily targeted regulation number 3 and number 7. And as I mentioned, this year there were rules that were passed by the Colorado Oil and Gas Commission, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Air Quality Control Commission, to go ahead and reduce emissions from oil and gas wells. Other strategies are the RAC, the Regional Air Quality Council. They're the lead air quality planning agency for the Denver area. They do a great voluntary public education and outreach program, encouraging alternative fuels, trying to limit the amount of vehicle idling, encourage lower VOC products to be used to kind of reduce the VOC emissions. Colorado Department of Public and Environment has ozone alert days to go ahead and advise people on strategies to go ahead and reduce their impact on ozone concentrations. And the last one there is use gas with a low Reid vapor pressure, which is referred to as RVP. What this is pretty much the higher the RVP content of gas, it means the more volatility that gas has. So the more emissions that you'll see of VOCs. With a lower RVP gas, such as 7.2 or so, it means it will have a reduced Reid vapor pressure, and you'll have less emissions. Some of the next steps are for this board to determine if we wanted to go ahead and submit comments on the proposed rule. Again, this rule just came out. I believe they're giving organizations 90 days from when it's published in the Federal Register, so we do have a long time to still go ahead and submit comments, but I would be looking for a direction from the board if it would like to submit any comments. I'll be working with the Air Quality Technical Committee to go ahead and evaluate potential strategies to go ahead and reduce ozone concentrations. And also I'll be working with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment Air Pollution Control Division. And actually, Christopher Dan is here, and he'll be saying a few words from the perspective of the state with regards to the proposed revised ozone standard and looking at modeling and evaluation of strategies. With that, I'll actually turn it over to Chris if you just want to say a few.
Dr. Question over here?
Yeah. What's the, all you showed us was Denver information. Are we included in their area as part of their area?
That was a graph of Colorado Springs. This is all Colorado Springs.
Oh, I thought I saw Denver. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is just the 2 monitoring stations in Colorado Springs Air Force Academy and Manatee Springs, and these are just monthly temperatures at the Colorado Springs Airport.
Thank you.
Sure.
Let's have the rest of the presentation, then we'll go to questions.
Good morning. My name is Christopher Dan. I'm the Communications Liaison for the state's Air Pollution Control Division. We're a division of the State Department of Public Health and Environment. I wanted to thank Rich for allowing me just to say a couple of words informally this morning. And I want to thank Rich and staff. They did just an excellent job with Rich's memorandum and the attachments. I was out of town the entire week of Thanksgiving and the week the EPA made the announcement, so I learned more from Rich's documentation than I knew coming in. So thanks very much. Rich was very thorough. Just a couple of points. One is that, as Rich has pointed out, this is a multiple-year process, and we're at the very, very beginning of it. And there's still a lot of unknowns. There are unknowns associated with the fact that there is still a range, so we don't know where EPA is going to settle on. Are they going to settle on 65, or are they going to settle on 70, or something in between those two? To use the Denver metropolitan area as an example, which is non-attainment, those 7 Denver metro counties and portions of Larimer and Weld and the North Front Range. Non-attainment for that 70 to the current standard. We had 8 monitors, I believe, that were out of compliance for the 2011 through 2013 averaging period. We had 4 come back into compliance when 2011 dropped off and 2014 was included in the 3-year average. And what we've seen in the Denver metropolitan area and the North Front Range over the last several years is this kind of ping-ponging, being, just above, just below, just above, just below. That's important to understand for down here because based on where they set the standard, we could see something similar down in this area. In terms of what strategies would be employed, that's a thorough and collaborative process. The Pikes Peak Area Council of Governments is the designated lead planning agency for this area. We at the State Health Department would work very closely with you on these things moving forward, as well as the EPA, and we're actually very fortunate that EPA has regional offices in Denver. We have a good working relationship with them. We've been submitting plans for decades, and again, our history is very positive in terms of that collaboration. So we would certainly hope that that would continue moving forward. But let's not get the cart, the horse too far out of the barn yet. There's a lot of unknowns that we'll learn in the coming months and next couple of years.
Thank you. Rich, if you could come back up, and I don't know who will want to answer the questions. It may depend on the question.
Sure.
Let's go to Mark Wallaby from Park County.
If the level keeps going up and down, who's to say that it's coming up and down because of us and not because of the background going up and down? How do they even know it's our pollution? I've heard numbers that are high in Park County, and there's nothing to pollute anything. So there's attainment, or, how is it possible if it's not coming from your area?
Well, it's a good question. It becomes a modeling exercise. I mean, you go ahead and model to go ahead and determine what it looks like the future concentrations will be if you go ahead and implement strategies. I was looking at the EPA website, and they did modeling for each of the areas that it might be a non-attainment. And for our area, for instance, they said if we did absolutely nothing, by 2025 we would have a concentration of 0.066 parts per million. So, it's just hard to say. I unfortunately don't have a good answer to that question because, as you can see by that table, meteorology plays a strong role in those concentrations, and we could be in a situation where once we do the modeling and incorporate all the federal strategies, that we really won't need to go ahead and do much in our area to bring it back into attainment. As Chris mentioned, there's just a lot of unknowns right now.
Councilmember Pico.
Yeah, 2 comments. One was kind of building on what Mark said. If the issue that's driving us out of attainment is coming from outside the region, and if I understand those numbers are anywhere between 2/3 and 1/2 of our levels are from outside the area. So is that going to be something that gets taken into account in the regs? You do some sort of modeling to figure out what it is, but what are they going to do with that? Are they going to tap us with that? Or are they going to require us to do something that's being driven from out of the area? And the second question is a question. You said if we do nothing, we're going to hit 0.66. Could you elaborate on that as to how we're going to reach attainment without doing anything?
Sure, and both those questions are somewhat tied together. If you go ahead and look at those federal strategies, the MAX, the Clean Power Plant Rule, Tier 3 standards. If you go ahead and incorporate all of those federal regulations and what their impact will be on emissions, then you come up with kind of a number, and that incorporates kind of, as we go out into the future, a lot of the older cars that we have, will go ahead and be circulated out of the fleet mix. So we'll start seeing newer cars that aren't emitting quite as much emission. So even though population will increase, it's expected that the amount of emissions reduction strategies that we'll see will go ahead and bring us to that level, and that's just a modeling exercise. So that's where they're getting the 0.066 parts per million. They're taking credit for federal strategies that we do not have in place now. And with regards to your other question, that might be something that you want to go ahead and comment on, is kind of for areas that have potentially high background concentrations, what's going to be done. And another issue is and there's been studies that have shown in areas such as ours, not necessarily in areas just like ours, but in areas that are at higher elevation, you might see a 1 to 2 parts per billion. So that'd be, let me do the math here, 0.001 to 0.002 increase in ozone concentrations just because of the elevation at the monitoring station. So that might also be a potential comment. Does that help?
That does a lot. Thanks.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. I'll make an editorial comment while I have the mic, is that half of our power plants are already in compliance. They already have the low NOx burners and modifications already done. So we're kind of already halfway there.
I'm curious, from the military corner, I believe some of your heavy vehicles are exempt from some standards that civilian vehicles have to meet. I don't know if that includes your light duty stuff, and of course this is more than just vehicles, but do you see this rule affecting you at all?
Those vehicles that will deploy to a theater of operation, the tactical vehicles, they are exempted from having to have the emissions meet the standards at this time. But all of the vehicles on the base that are support vehicles, administrative vehicles, those things that are usually provided by the GSA to the federal government partners, those all have to meet standards. And so I would say probably of the emissions on an installation like Fort Carson, because of the training activity is limited to sort of spurts of training, we still probably have 70% of what we are emitting is with vehicles that are meeting standards or have the latest technology, but not the tactical fighting vehicles.
So, Rich, I don't know what kind of programs we would come up with if we're out of attainment, but what would be the short answer on how that might affect military bases? Because it's more than vehicles.
Right.
Right.
And at this period, I don't know. I mean, it's just it's hard to say, because a lot of it depends upon how much our area would have to reduce the concentrations by, and we just don't know that because we don't know what the standard is, and also we don't know, even more important, what our 2014 to 2016 average would be. I mean, if we get 2 more years of the exact same concentrations, which I doubt, then we'd even be under a 0.065.
So it's probably useful that you're not generating your own electric power at your bases and posts. So, Dr. Null?
I hate to admit this again, but having the great honor to be with the EPA in 1970 for a year, talking about both water and air quality. The whole debate was, can we use the same standards for those kinds of programs? And of course, very first thing that happened was the pollution that came from the southern portion of our state came from south to the north in an area into our state that we have no control over in terms of the pollution that's generated there. And when we talked about how one can come into compliance in an area when the pollution comes from another source, we were told, well, we haven't worked that out yet. They're still working it out. And the reality is there's not necessarily a connection between what we might violate on the pollution standard down there and what we're doing at all here, or Pueblo. And so there's always the problem that EPA has to back off to some extent because they can't require, when it comes right down to it, if you take them to court, whether you're in compliance or not in areas that have what we used to call a natural pollution source, even though that's not necessarily a natural source. And so this issue is always a scary issue, and usually nothing happens to ensure compliance. Not that I'm asking for that. I'm just saying I think elected leaders worry about, are we going to get some service or a resource cutoff because of this. This has been going on for a huge amount. Just as long as the water that comes out of Fountain Creek is the area that we judge our water quality on down there. It's all kind of removed from here in a sense, and then the regulations come out. So all we can do is watch the regulations and try to implement that. Isn't to the extent that it's required. Isn't that true?
Yes.
Well, kind of like to wrap this up. So, Commissioner Clark.
So the last time we considered this, I felt like we were throwing at a dartboard and just picking a number between 1 and 10. And I think it was really disconcerting to figure out that it wasn't really science-based. So now they're telling us that it's science-based. But, you know, I look at the chart, too, and the years, and I wonder, it's kind of interesting, I wonder if our forest fires had anything to do with the ozone. I mean, I don't know, but it certainly is something that could affect us that isn't our fault. It's not something that we necessarily wanted in our region. Larimer probably and other counties were in similar positions. So obviously we could blame the federal government for the additional ozone if we blame them for the forest fires. But we continually have this discussion, and I guess I look to you, Rich, to say, you know, I don't know what's reasonable. I'm not a scientist. I'm not on the Environmental Protection Agency. I don't know what is reasonable in terms of creating an attainment. Certainly none of us want air that's not clean. None of us want water that's not clean. But we're continually responding to sometimes things that we don't understand necessarily or don't have clear science-based background to say that we can make a difference. Yeah, we'll try and not have any more forest fires in the next 5 years. That's I mean, we hopefully won't have those, but that's not our fault any more than volcanic eruptions are the fault of Hawaii or Washington State or whomever. They create ozone issues, do they not?
Yeah, and I can go ahead and touch on the forest fire question real quick. Based upon the source apportionment modeling that was done, which kind of looks at different sources, I think forest fires is between 1.5 to 1.7% of the total source of the total contribution levels at the ozone monitor. But what's interesting is I looked at the ozone concentrations for when the Waldo Canyon fire and the Black Forest fire occurred, and we did not get any elevated ozone concentrations at all during those fires. But in talking with folks at the state, you know, and looking at the modeling, you can still see sometimes the effects of wildfires from other areas, and
States.
and that
Like-
just depends upon the wind, the meteorology,
Dr. Knowles'
yeah,
comments, yeah.
exactly, and all those other factors. So
Mount St. Helens erupts, we'll
Yeah,
have more.
and I don't. Go ahead, Chris.
If I may jump in on that, specific to wildfires, ozone can be impacted either negatively or positively by smoke from wildfires. It's a very complicated photochemical thing that's going on in the atmosphere, but rest assured, the EPA has a natural, an exceptional events policy in which if we can demonstrate that high ozone concentrations were negatively impacted or increased based on an event like a wildfire, those numbers are thrown out. And we have a strong history in Colorado. We've had a number of exceptional events requests that we've made over the years that they've already acted on, where those numbers have been thrown out and not included as part of the average. And we have others that we're waiting for them to act upon. So ozone is a very complicated pollutant, and we're learning more and more about it all the time. But I can assure you that there are policies in place to address the wildfire issue.
So, has EPA put a number to the cost for local communities to become compliant? And I'm not talking about just government, the average person, and, if they all have to buy new cars or do certain things. I mean, has there been any cost analysis that's been put to this with regard to what it'll cost us?
I believe in the attachments, there's a general cost, but that doesn't get at your question with regards to the average cost per individual, and that would, I don't know, that would depend upon a lot on the strategies that are chosen to be implemented in our area. So I don't have a number for that, and I believe the EPA isn't allowed to go ahead and consider cost in making decisions with regards to ozone standards. I believe is that an accurate statement?
Yes. So basically, the answer is no.
But I know the actual, I believe the Mercury and Air Toxic Standards Act is actually in the courts right now, because one of the issues is there's agencies and entities that want to go ahead and have the EPA consider costs. So right now, I mean, almost every decision that's being made is being held up in the courts, whether it's a Clean Power Plant rule, Mercury or Toxic Stance, Act. I'm sure ozone will be no exception. So I'm sure this will delay decisions even
Sally,
more.
you look like you're ready to speak again. I'm wondering if maybe you
Well-
and Rich need to get together offline. We need to move this along.
Well, and I understand that. Others have had an opportunity. So I just, one of the things that frustrates me about the air quality issue, too, is that, and I asked for a copy of our bylaws, is we are required by our MPO transportation planning and being an MPO, one member of the Colorado Transportation Commission, which we have, and one member of the Colorado Air Quality Control Commission, which we cannot seem to get them to participate on this MPO and on a regular basis. And I think we need to ask the state about that, because here we're being asked to look at these issues regarding air quality. We're supposed to have somebody here, and we don't. So that was my other point. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Recorder Williams.
I'll be real quick, for me at least. If you looked at the chart, you saw that air quality in terms of ozone improved once we got rid of the emissions standards, which reminds you that just because one thing follows another does not mean it was caused by it. One of the key factors in ozone that is controllable is the amount of idling that's done. Idling cars emit significantly more pollutants, plus they're on the road longer. So how do you reduce ozone? Get rid of congestion. I-25 went to 6 lanes, and the ozone dropped in this community. And that is, I think, one of the significant causes, because you had a lot less idling, because that's where the bulk of the cars are traveling. And so when we look at fighting for reducing congestion in the area, it's also something that has a direct and significant impact on air quality. And so it is something that that we want to look at in terms of that. But there's two notes I want to make on that. One is I have no idea why California is a special rule to the rest of the world, and it doesn't make any sense to me that you would say, well, it's too hard for them, so we're not going to do it for them, we're just going to do it for the rest of you. But the second part is recognize that at the state level, there are congestion mitigation and air quality standards, and there's funding for that. And if I'm not telling you this because I think we should do it, I'm telling you it so you're aware of it. We get less money because we're in attainment. And the way the funding formulas work, if we go out of attainment, we would get more money in terms of CMAQ funds for this community. Now, I'm not saying that's what we should do, but what the standard does is it pushes everybody out of attainment. Virtually every community of any size at all goes out of attainment with lowering the standards, which means everyone's able to get the funds, which means that their purpose, which was to get the really polluted areas better, is diminished by the change in the standards. And so just so you're aware of that and how that funding formula works.
Tyler Stevens, and then we'll have Councilmember Pico for the last word.
Thank you, Rich, for bringing this to our attention again. I think it's been many, many years anticipated coming down, and thank you for your heads up on that, and I appreciate this board's attention to it because it is an important issue, but as suggested, this is a multi-year process, and there's really not immediate decision-making now. However, I would suggest two strategies, one which Wayne alluded to earlier, which is to start this community thinking about what control measures we may want to think about and adopt, whether they be infrastructure related or control measures on the an OBD level or something like that. But what possibilities would we want to look at? And obviously with APCD's modeling and things, we'll be seeing what we might anticipate being, and we may or may not be within that anticipated levels. Secondly, I think that it's important for PPACG to really look at what our national associations are, whether it be NACO or NARC or the other associations that we are associated with, and I bring that up also in the same light of MPAC, the Federal Lobbying Coordination Group for the Pikes Peak region, how we can help influence in the Washington realm our input and having a coordinated response in a timely fashion to those other associations. And once comments may or may not be adopted or thought about in that national conversation, I think it's important for us to coordinate a response from the Pikes Peak region to that conversation.
Thank you. Councilmember Pico.
I think we should start preparing some draft comments to go back on the rule, and I would focus on two areas for, at least initially, which is address somehow the background or out of area or natural or however you want to phrase it, concentrations. And then the other one would be, I think you mentioned the elevation is worth about 0.01. Either of those would put us in attainment. So I think those are two comments we ought to at least put on the record starting off, get ready to do that.
Thank you. Okay, no action on that item. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Right, no action yet.
Thanks.
Item B, statewide transportation advisory committee agenda discussion. Who wants to handle this one? Norm?
Yeah, just a couple things. From announcements from last week, last month's meeting, there was extensive discussion on the 2040 plan. The 2040 plan is now open for comment. That's available at www.colorado.transportationmatters.com. Just a brief personnel announcement. Kurt Morrison has been a big friend of CDOT, has left CDOT. He's now working the Deputy Legislative Director for the Governor. So they're looking for CDOT Legislative Director, both state and federal. Just a reminder to everybody here that we now have an opportunity to provide our comments to STAC. Previously, here we've provided comments from the STAC to us. If there's something you'd like me to carry to the STAC, to the CDOT, there's an opportunity on the agenda to do that each month. Then finally, kind of follow up our discussion here, compressed natural gas There's a project underway with the Colorado Energy Office. There's funding available. The strategy is kind of a chicken and the egg thing as to how do you get infrastructure without vehicles to burn the fuel. The process is to provide funding to government entities to purchase CNG-fueled vehicles, up to one half of $50 million, both from Department of Local Affairs and from Colorado Energy Office. So if you're considering buying vehicles for your government entity, check with the Colorado Energy Office. There may be funding to do that. Weld County has 5 CNG sites in construction, are underway. They're actually fueling vehicles and have seen a fuel cost savings up to 25% on fuel for fleet services. So there's one site available under study right now in the Colorado Springs area. I'm one of 3 members on staff to be on this little working committee. So stay tuned for CNG updates. It's going to affect our pollution in the future. So thanks.
Thanks. Anything we want to give to Norm to take back? Thank you. 7C is nominating committee report for PPACG officers for 2015. Who would like to take that one?
I'll be taking that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Board of Directors, I'm Mark Denreader, Teller County Commissioner. On behalf of the PPACG Board Nominating Committee, I'm going to present nominations for each of the board officer positions, and then the Secretary of State-elect, Wayne Williams, will provide some comments on the stack and the representation from the PPACG Board. So we have a recommended and alternative slate. All right. For the executive officer positions, I will read the recommended version, and here it is. The chair, Mark Schneider. First vice chair, Andy Pico. Second vice chair, Norm Steen. Treasurer, Rafael Dominguez. And secretary, Dennis Heisey. Again, that is the recommended slate. Here's the alternative slate. Chair, Mark Snyder. First Vice Chair, Andy Pico. Second Vice Chair, Norm Steen. Treasurer, Dennis Heisey. And Secretary, Tyler Stevens.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Clerk and Recorder Williams.
Yeah, I'm going to start by explaining a little bit of the rationale for
I
what
was
he
sure
just
of
said.
that, actually.
Which is, first, we typically rotate always the chair and the treasurer position after 2 years. And so with Dennis stepping off, it was important that we come up with what we're going to do. And it has been the tradition of this board to advance the first vice chair, who is Mr. Snyder. And Mayor Snyder's done a great job, and Councilman Pico also advancing forward. So that was the first part that we started with and said those two definitely should be there. The second part of that then is who should be the second vice chair. And this is a position where we wanted someone who had some good experience on this board and activity because, again, as the way it's set up, that they will eventually likely move forward. And so we thought Norm Steen was the best for that. With respect to the recommended slate, and I did visit with former Mayor Stevens, Councilman Stevens, Trustee Stevens, what's the right?
Tyler.
Some of us have.
I believe
Wayne.
He's Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem. But Mayor Stevens has been on the board, on the executive committee for about a decade. And so that's why the recommended, including service as chairman of the board, that's why the recommended slate says let's give some newer folks the opportunity to do that. And the reason for the continued inclusion of Dennis on that is we thought it was important under the principles established that we have a member both from the city of Colorado Springs and El Paso County representing the two largest political entities. And so Dennis was the commissioner who was a regular member who was willing to serve, and so that's how we came up with that rationale. With respect to STAC, it's our recommendation that Norm Steen continue in his service as the STAC representative, and that the last and next to last alternates be Rob McDonald as next to last and Craig Casper as last. Is that the way we've done that, or And that's traditionally, and then we have some opportunities for other members of this board to fill in however many slots of alternates you want to. And so our question is, are there people
Anyone want to raise their hand?
who are interested? Because the only one we had, I think, was Norm, and if we missed someone, I apologize.
And just to let you know, Lisa Salatko had withdrawn her name and said she didn't want to continue on there. So essentially, we have Norm and then our executive director and then Craig Casper also as alternates, but the opportunity exists to put in first and second alternates from this board or others that may be out there that might be interested. I don't think it's a requirement that they be on this board, but it is preferred somebody who's engaged and involved on this board to understand what's going on to carry that message to Denver.
It's generally the second Friday, or you guys are
Well,
moving it.
the beginning in January will be the fourth Friday. We're trying to synchronize the stack input with CDOT input to the Transportation Commissioner. So 9 till noon, one Friday a month. And then I just personally have spent a little more time with Craig and Rob, getting up on issues, and so kind of self-paced on that aspect.
I might put it out there too, that perhaps, and I'll look back to Bob Baker here sitting right behind me, that if there are CAC members that might be interested as well, if in fact we don't have board members that want to step forward at this time, that we will still have 2 vacant alternate spots that could be filled at a later time based on interest from either this board or from our Citizens Advisory Committee.
And a lot of times we've just had 3, and there's no limit to the number of alternates you could have, but I guess Dr. Cog could have 4,000 alternates between all of their member governments. So, having...
Snyder?
Oh, sorry, were you finished?
Are you volunteering?
Well,
maybe we were getting to those types of things, so.
And I hear talk, and I think Commissioner Gruen's term is up in maybe June next year or sooner, April or June or something. So, but I've heard there's talk about recomposition for the actual Transportation Commission, and the one talk has been about maybe substituting the stack into that role. I don't know if that has any traction or not. Have you heard about that?
I see.
I don't think
Karen's shaking her head no.
I haven't heard that, and I doubt the governor would sign that.
Yeah, I suspect that. I've also heard that the stack recommendations are vetted through staff, and they don't go directly to the Transportation Commission. So they may or may not be presented to the
That was a major discussion of our offsite, was who the stack advises. The statute is written that the stack advises CDOT. And the determination was made that the Transportation Commissioners are not part of CDOT. They are a governor board overseeing CDOT. Therefore, stack advises CDOT staff only. Now, a lot of us had an issue that there are elected officials advising state staff rather than other elected officials. But it was made quite clear by STAC and Transportation Commission that was the intent of the legislature, and that was the way it's going to stand. So,
We'll make clear that
Not without discussion.
We don't advise on policy. We advise on transportation needs.
yes, yeah. But I mean, the good side is that we've STAC has positioned itself to be more advisory in the development of policies, not just on final comment, but both at the state level and the regional level. And thanks to Karen Rowe, and her staff's been very, very open to that. So,
Councilmember Pico.
Excuse me, for clarification, are we looking for alternatives, for alternates for the stack?
Yes.
Okay, I'll submit my name.
Okay. Councilmember Pico. I'll toss mine in behind him.
Okay. So based on that, Mr. Chairman, the recommendation, since they put themselves in that order, would be Norm Steen as primary member, Rafael Dominguez as first alternate, Councilmember Andy Pico as second alternate, Rob McDonald as third, and Craig Casper as fourth.
Very good.
That's correct.
Well done, Commissioner Clark.
I would just like to ask, because we have, I'm assuming we'll vote on these separately, but, and I don't know how we're going to do the voting on on our executive committee, but I would like the candidates to just make a quick comment about why they want to serve on the executive committee. Since we have more candidates than we have spots, I think it's only fair that we hear why they want to be involved and why they want to be on the executive committee.
And since we don't vote until January, you have a month to prepare. Any other pertinent information on nominating committee? Thank you. Moving on to member entity announcements.
Did you want to revisit the strategic coalition?
Do we have impact report members here yet? I think somehow we got our wires crossed there. Okay.
May I make a comment on that? Since I am one of those folks that attends those meetings, just to let you know, I think obviously a lot of work on the military portion of making sure that we have a strong military presence here in the Pikes Peak region. The other thing that seemed to work its way to the top was transportation. I think obviously very important for this group, especially considering that MAP 21 and HUTF runs out in May of next year, and we need to be well prepared and continue to voice our concerns at the federal level that we want to make sure that there's long sustained funding for transportation, and waters of the U.S. also related to the EPA rules on stormwater and what is a navigable water and the cost to local government to implement. And those were, I think, I don't know if there were any other things of those of us that were there that wanted to mention any particular components. Wildfire and healthy forest initiatives was another one that really moved to the top of what we want our DC folks to be concentrating on at the federal level.
Thank you. I think I'll hold comment. I do expect them to come in and give a report next month, and we'll hear past successes and what the plan is going ahead. I will announce that our PPACG representative, Tyler Stevens, is head of the Transportation Committee there. Oh.
Because you are the team member.
I am.
May I ask a question for Rob, based on the fact that we're dealing with this ozone and air quality issue, what we have been given from the governor, who is supposed to appoint our commission, our PPACG representative, where we are on that, or whether we need to send another letter, whether we need to make a phone call and say, we really would like somebody here from the Air Quality Control Commission. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have a name for both air quality and water quality. Mark's been here, but Gary has not. Believe Rich can check me on it if he left. They've been trying to send staff down, and I think part of the response we got back from at least air quality, they haven't had anyone in this region apply to be appointed to that commission. So we'll follow up and we'll bring that back.
So do we need to find a name to give to them?
Your job.
It's another one of those high-paid jobs.
Yeah. Volunteer opportunity.
100% increase every year in your salary.
We'll check back in. We'll see if our current rep is still on the Air Quality Control Commission, and if not, if we can get someone.
Well, and I mean, if we need to look outside this board and find somebody who's interested in serving, sometimes we don't know those openings are there unless we look for someone. Okay.
Great. Thanks. Member entity announcements. What might you have going on that is of interest to the group? CDOT Region 2 Director Karen Rowe.
Yes, hi. Well, I have a few things on there. I know Rob talked about getting together, and we're finalizing our next 4-year STIP plan. So we're trying to identify that this month, next Friday, December 19th. And we're not having everyone from all the TPRs come to finalize that. We went out to the TPRs and had a list of projects and said, does this meet what you wanted for your transportation needs. And they adjusted it, and we had a rough plan. We've combined all those plans. We finalized our faster safety list. So the faster safety money is no longer part of the MPO's or TPR's discretion to determine. We have come up with a list of faster safety projects, but we're matching that up or showing it next to the list of our PP projects that we've identified. So next Friday we'll be meeting with the TPRs and MPOs to finalize that list of our PP projects and faster safety projects. And then what we plan to do, I think, is approve it in January, and then the STIP will be finalized in July. It'll go through the Transportation Commission process, I think. And by May or June, it's going to be finalized and adopted in July for the next 4 years. So that'll be fiscal year 16 through 19. So I'm excited. We'll have a list of projects. We've kind of been on hold. The STIP was kind of wiped clean for fiscal year 16 and 17, so we haven't kind of seen what our projects are going to be moving forward, other than the ones in this area that we've already identified. The other thing, Norm hit a lot of the highlights in terms of, I really encourage you to go to that coloradotransportationmatters.com and check out our statewide transportation plan. It is pretty interactive. It has videos on it and things like that. So it's a culmination of a pretty big effort. The other thing is busing is rolling out, and CDOT has a media plan that's more of a soft media plan. They'll go to events. They plan to go to the ICE event up in Cripple Creek and bring a bus up there so people can see it. They plan to have a kickoff meeting or a kickoff event in, I think it's March, at the Nevada Tejon Park and Ride. So it's pretty exciting. I think it's in March that will start. The bus thing again is a commuter bus. It'll go. It'll stop at Nevada Tejon, Woodman, Monument, and then Colorado in Denver, Colorado Boulevard in Denver, and then downtown. So it's a pretty express kind of bus. It's like the Frex system. It has Wi-Fi, and they've actually manufactured the buses for this effort. So it's pretty exciting. And maybe, Norm, we can bring some of that information in terms of tolls and things like that to one of these meetings. So again, it's not a lot of advertising in a lot of big newspapers, that kind of thing. It's a kind of soft media campaign to get out there and let people know about it. The big news is good and bad news on Cimarron. So this board approved the $20 million of RPP. We asked for that much and asked for RPP because we thought it'd be the fastest and simplest way to move that project forward. At the last commission meeting, there were two projects from Region 2, 4 projects overall, that came to the commission needing more money as part of the RAMP partnership program. And because of that, because there was such a big financial need and different circumstances for the different projects, the one project that got funding was ILEX down in Pueblo. Because it's further along in the process, we needed to award it. So they were requesting $9 million of RPP to get that funded and move forward. Bill Tebow, Les Gruen's counterpart in Pueblo, he has 10 counties down to the southeast, said, look, I don't want to use RPP. I think for RAMP partnership, CDOT should come to the table with this additional funding. So ILEX was funded with what's called a RAMP contingency fund. Okay, so that's kind of good, right? It's good. You know, CDOT's taking responsibility and understanding that construction costs have gone up and come to the table with that money. The bad thing is they said with Cimarron, they said, we're not approving it right now. We need a policy. We need, not a policy, but we need steps to show what have you done to reduce your costs as much as possible. And we need to determine what kind of funding we're going to move forward on this. So I've been working this last month to show them all the scope cuts that we have done on this project as we've moved forward. We've done all our fiscal responsibility ability we can. And so that $20 million number we came with last time was, again, the fastest, easiest way to budget move forward on the project. The thought is on that, even working with the city, is some of that money would be coming back to the Pikes Peak area. So it wasn't like the project would use all $20 million. It would use about $15 million, but that other money would just slip back behind the scenes back to Pikes Peak. So we're going this time to the Commission with a request for $15.5 million additional budget to the project. However, the city has $2 million of that $15.5 in cash match. So we're asking CDOT for an additional $13.5 million. Of that $13.5 million, the recommendation at this time, the Commission could change this, is that it would be $8.5 million of RPP and $5 million of ramp contingency. And part of the reason is this project already had RPP funds in it. So it's also, they don't have an unlimited amount of a ramp contingency fund. They're looking at creating one that's about an $80 million pot of money. ILEX would have already used $9 million, so Cimarron would use $5 million, and pretty much Region 2 would be done. We've already funded Old Ranch and Fillmore, and we don't have any more. We have another ramp partnering project that came in under budget in Pueblo, and then other than that, we just have one small one left. So the problem with that is the project is delayed one more month. So we're really looking to the Transportation Commission to approve some sort of funding to move the project forward, to add that $15.5 million into the budget so that those 3 design build teams can submit their proposals, and we would then open bids at the end of February, and we could start construction this construction season. So I just wanted to make you aware of what's going on at the Trans Commission level, and it's not just a Region 2 issue, it's a statewide issue of, okay, if all the ramp partnerships projects come over 20%, we're not going to have enough money.
Thanks, I think.
So, I know. So it's delayed 1 month, but the good news is we may not have as much money that we would have to contribute from RPP, but I just don't know yet. So Wayne.
I'm kind of glad to hear kind of that. I guess it's the right response, but I'm looking forward to being a passenger on the commuter bus, so it needs to open because that's how I'm getting to
March.
Denver. Do you know if that is going to have the ability to go on shoulders yet? Has that been resolved?
The bus thing?
Yeah.
It has not been resolved yet. I think it's a vision that they're trying to implement, but it's not, again, you can't just say the bus will already go on the shoulder. You know what I mean? There's lots of things that you have to put in place in order to make that happen.
And then the other question, this may have been at last meeting, but I missed it if it was. I know the governor, when we did the ribbon cutting for the expansion of I-25, talked about the next phase, which is that, I think, 13-mile stretch from Monument Hill to Castle Rock, which has not been environmentally cleared yet.
Right.
Do you know what your counterpart in that region is doing with respect to getting that environmentally cleared so the governor's promise can be fulfilled?
It's in the plan work, so a bit like we're all as regions finalizing our next STIP round. In that, I have some RPP money from this area to help contribute to that effort, just a small amount, because again, it benefits. So I need to talk to Region 1 and see how much money they are setting aside for that to move forward on it. But like you said, I think the governor helped make it a priority in Region 1. So as they go through this RPP funding exercise and other things, we'll coordinate with them. And I think they're partnering, too, with Douglas County to get some money. So Region 2 would contribute some RPP funds, and then Region 1 would contribute something. But it's not, I'd probably say in the next 6 months, we'll get going on it and find some funding and get that going.
Thanks. Raphael?
With regards to the exercises you guys are going through right now, are there any discussions on contributing money for the payoff of BRDA?
Yes, there are discussions on it, and we're trying to figure out the best way to do that. The other part of what happened at the Transportation Commission is that there was $45 million we were trying to figure out how to spend. And in that proposal was to pay back the Baptist Road. That proposal was not approved. In fact, those funds are going to be used most likely for this ramp contingency fund. However, we are still having conversations at CDOT to determine then how do we do that? How do we pay back Baptist Road if those funds are not going to be that source? And so I do have a meeting with Scott Richrath, who's our Chief Financial Officer, next Monday. I think Herman Stockinger, our government relations person, is getting involved. So we will continue to have those discussions and work to find a funding source to pay that back.
Okay, is there going to be a partial payment perhaps and not necessarily an entire payoff? I can understand that might be limited, but are there discussions about partial?
At this point, there's no funds identified. So that was the funding source, and I proposed that, okay, if you guys don't want to use all $13 million, maybe you propose a portion of that, and we could do a partial payment, but I don't think that's what came back from the Transportation Commission as a recommendation. So they're coming back with another proposal for that $45 million, but right now the Baptist Road isn't on that proposal. So I need to find out a little bit more as to what's the status of that.
Okay, thank you.
Sally?
So, I guess I was expecting a call from CDOT, but didn't ever get that this last week before we got here. But I guess we could make the same argument as Pueblo by saying, CDOT should put up because it's an interchange. It's a federal highway interchange that connects with a state highway, US 24. What's going to happen because even if you bring it up to 15 and a half, we're still short 4.5 million, and how is that going to affect the project?
Actually, we're not short 4.5 million, and I know I didn't explain that well. So what happened from the 20 million down to the 15.5 million is previously we were going to budget for landscaping and irrigation. That's a $3 million cost, and then the city would pay us back for that, and that $3 million of RPP would come back to the pot. We've had to just not fund that, so the landscaping and irrigation is taken out of the project. It's a $3 million expenditure that we can work to finance as we move forward on the project. The design build team would still include that in their design, and we can fund it.
Yeah, we saw what happened, though, on I-25 with the landscaping and irrigation, and that never happened. So forgive me, but I'm just skeptical of CDOT's promises to do certain things and say, oh, we'll find the money later. The money doesn't come later, and it becomes a lower priority as you're looking at then other projects in Denver and other projects around the state. So I'm just putting this out there that I truly worry about us shortchanging and cheaping out this really important project. It's a gateway not only to Colorado Springs, but to Teller and Park County and to the mountains. And we've been waiting a very long time for this to come around. So I don't, politically, maybe we're on the wrong spectrum as it relates to what the State Transportation Commission wants, where they want to put us, and I don't mean to say that in the wrong way, but it just seems like we're on the short end of the deal here, and so I'm really concerned. I want to see a way to fill that gap. So that we don't end up just cheaping it out and not getting the project done in completion. We live in a climate that doesn't survive if there's not landscaping and irrigation, and if we're truly to do it the right way, it needs to be done the right way from the beginning. And I could make the exact same excuses or reasoning that Pueblo made, and realizing the politics sometimes come into play, but Ilex and Pueblo could be I-25 and Cimarron too. So I'm just saying I'm not giving up here to say we're just going to let CDOT off the hook on this one. And I'm sorry that you're the messenger for that, Karen. I'm sure you're used to that. But it is just something that I feel very uncomfortable. We've pushed this project back, and now again, we're another month. We just keep hearing, this reminds me of the federal government, we just keep kicking the can down the road, no pun there, but it just is frustrating for us when we've been sitting around looking at our watches for many, many years, as long as I've been on this board, which is about 10 years now. This has just been a long, long time, and we need to get on with it. And I don't know what other suggestions. I certainly will put a call into our state transportation commissioner, and I would suggest that other members of this board do the same to let them know that we need full funding on this.
Okay, and I'd like to talk to you offline, and I do apologize for not calling you earlier and discussing this with you. So I will do that, and I commit to working with you to get that landscaping irrigation done one way or another for the project. I just worry that if we hold ourselves to that requirement right now, whether the project will move forward. But I want to make everyone happy. It's a ramp partnership project. We partnered with you to get the project we need, and I've been working hard with the city and the county to make sure that we're holding the essence of what this project goals were in order to get it constructed and funded. It just landed in a very difficult time with those construction costs going up by 20%.
Yeah.
So,
and I'll look back here. I'm assuming, I don't know if Kathleen's here, but from the city, and the city has been a great partner, but they just keep having to come back to the table with more and more money, and local government has its limitations as well as to really what is a state and federal responsibility. So partnerships are certainly something we want to do, but at the same time we can't just keep going back to the local coffers and saying put up more and more and more. We've already done that, and I think we've done that on this board too, with committing some long-term dollars going forward that could be used for other projects as well.
Okay.
I just feel uncomfortable about that.
Rob?
For the board translation, CDOT brought before you, I think it was TIP Amendment 23 last month, where you approved the additional $20 million of that one funding category regional priority program. I think we're good from this board level, unless CDOT comes back and says we need to change funding categories. But we have a process in our TIP policy that you all have adopted and CDOT has adopted. We can change the color of the money administratively. So that $20 million line item for additional expected cost is not real until the bids come in. So they want to have the bids come in and then figure out what's going to go on. So I think TIP budgetarily instead of CDOT budgetarily, which is done at the commission level. But with your TIP, you have all the money you need for the total envision project, unless the bids come in even higher than that $20 million CDOT estimated. And so changing the color of the money, whether City of Colorado Springs General Fund, Downtown Association, any other funding source can come in and knock out part of that $20 million. And so that'll be the next step. But unless it's severe, you may not even see it, just that the project is going to be funded to the standard that was expected. Because I think the missing action from the Transportation Commission was budgeting that $20 million as RPP flavor of money. I think for this board, what I'm hearing, you don't care the color of the money, just get the whole project done, and if others contribute, that's fine. Because right now, I think there's 12 categories of funding in that $100+ million interchange. And what's another couple flavors? Ramp contingency is the next flavor that we look at.
Baskin
Kudos
Robbins.
for Karen to fight for that project. Again, I just wanted to translate for the board that you approved a TIP amendment, plenty of money, but the only question may be the flavors may modify slightly again. We'll report that, but it may just be an information item. If it's not, your TIP policy says, well, bring that back for this board action, and we'll do that if that does change that way.
Thank you. Dr. Knoll.
I just give you the benefit of my knowledge of history. It is frustrating to sit here and see this interchange moved out, moved in, moved out, the priorities. Sooner or later, I would like to hear the state make the commitment to that project and actually fund it and do it. I've got a long history here, and it seems like this has been a problem, I won't say how long, in this history. And I know you aren't the only one here, but if you're not going to fund it, say so. But if you are going to fund it, I don't understand why each year passes and we can't do it again. It just doesn't sound like the state is being responsive to a local need because it thinks the other needs are higher in priority. If that's the case, I wonder why we talk about it in citizens groups as being a priority for us when that priority never seems to get implemented. So I would urge you, it's not your fault, I would urge you to get this done if you possibly can. Thank you.
And for the folks of us that are up in the mountains, this is our entrance. So it's really important to us too. And I come here to shop, so I don't live here, or I come down here to CCI conferences, and that stupid interchange is a pain in the butt. So we need that thing fixed regionally, not just for these guys, for us too, for the folks all around here that come here as our shopping area, preferred shopping area. Because of all the great work that's been done. Years on transportation.
Thank you. Other member entity announcements.
Well, I just wanted to thank staff once again for this wonderful medley of treats. It's the culinary highlight for my kids. So, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
We do appreciate that. You have the meeting scheduled. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Once again, the motion carries.
Same as it ever was. I just sit here feeling like Charlie Brown with the football.
The ozone concentration was going up here a little bit.
So Dennis,
Yes.
I was going to bend your ear on swapping positions on that transportation.
Why would we do that?
Why?
Yeah.
Because
You're just honored to the Is everybody contributing?
Okay, well, take one now and then.
Actually, 2.1.
Okay.
And stuck in the chair of Silver Phoenix chair.
Are you?
And so I'm concerned about my ability.
You might need it for lunch.
Sounds good. Well,
thank you. I
appreciate
it. Thank you, Beverly.
When did you meet? To just my time constraints.
You know, I do feel otherwise. Let me talk to Stephanie and see kind of what's expected out of this, because I was
Who would it have come
on the other
from?
team,
Yeah.
and we didn't ever do anything.
I think, I don't know what's actually expected, but
So it would be from PPACG?
feels every meeting I I think Friday will probably.
One thing I have from PPACG from yesterday was Angel Bond, which is
Maybe very a little bit in the morning, but otherwise.
Because then we have the lunch.
Right.
That's it.
You gotta head south.
So maybe bring it to the first thing.
I've got a 9 o'clock, so I may show up just long enough to, love you, but I'm not here, you know?
Meeting of the year.
I know, right?
Friday will see.
There
you go.
That's not my right email.
So you need to let them know what the right email is.
They've combined them.
Well, at least.
They do. They have my right email.
You were
He
still
doesn't
with the
have it.
expectation.
He doesn't have it.
I get it.
Okay.
But it did go to you.
Yeah.
After we
So you got it, but it did go to you.
Yeah, that's an old email. I changed it with them like a year ago.
So what happens is Rob sent out, and that's the one that folds off.
Right.
That's happened to me sometimes. They send out, and the old one's the one that just
Yeah, and it doesn't matter how many times you delete it in your computer. It's still there. So it still pulls up. That drives me nuts. Mystery solved. Well, I'll talk to him now and tell him to correct it. That was Sharon for Fountain, but that was like 2 years ago.
Well, we're going to meet somewhere. I respond to him. It's like, whatever you want.
What's that?
How about yourself?
I am.
I couldn't find that anywhere.
I know. It's like
You finally got it back.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Saved my life.
We're talking about our impact on the transportation. Unfortunately, it pointed at me, and I was saying, well, actually,
When I talked to that guy last week,
what do we do?
Still got 2 years to work.
That's right. Run to the finish line.